All right, welcome to the shop. We are going to have a really fun time tonight. I've been wanting to do this one for a while. I remember making these when I was 13 years old because I was forced to by my shop teacher. And it was a tedious method. So I've since improved the method. I haven't actually made hardly any of these in my life. Only times I have was when I found a special piece of wood. Treasure is all around us for wood. I mean, when a storm goes through, trees go down. I mean, we have trees go down on our own property, and when they clip the trees for the lines, and they'll just throw wood on the side. That's fair game. In our town it is. I don't know what it's like where you are. But a lot of times a tree that has meaning to you that you grew up around. We had a willow tree in my backyard as kids, and man, if I had a slice of that today, it would be cool to still have some kind of tactile connection to that time in my life. And around here, we've had some really awesome maple trees. We live next door to what's called the Maple Grove Cemetery. We are in an old maple, like a sugar grove, the hard maples. If you look around, dotted through the woods, there are these massive, like 200-year-old maple trees. And we have probably at least four or five of them on our property and then over at the next door. And they just had a big maple come down on the road going up to the cemetery. And I said, hey, do you mind if I take some of that? But anyway, what I want to make tonight is something like this. I mean, how hard can this be? This is actually an awesome kind of beginner project, something you could do with a child. There's some power tools with my method, of course. So there's one little router segment that you'll see that you probably want to do. But this is all we're going to make. It's like a nice disc of wood. And the sides, I don't know if you can pick it up on the camera. You see they're not perpendicular. They're actually slightly crown in to give it a little more stable appearance, because the base is slightly wider. And it's actually got a slight radius to it as well. You guys know how I like that pillowing. And this is a piece of spalted burl. I got it when I was cutting firewood last fall, and on one of the big old maples that I had to clean up, there was this bulbous growth. It was only small, it was like that. And I just ran it through and moved the fence, and I cut them at about 7/16 thick. And after I cut it, it still had some moisture in it. It wasn't super wet, but it still had some moisture in it. So after I cut it, I just stacked it over, and it went all through the winter, the dry winter, and all those thin pieces were good to go just recently. So I took them, and these are some of the cut up pieces that have already been thicknessed down a little bit. But I wanted to show you, this is another piece of burl that I had around here, and it's not a great one. You can see I chunked this off of a big maple, and maybe it got left out too long. Might have got a look at that. It's sad, isn't it? It's got a little bug eating and a little mildewing. But inside there might be gold. There might be treasure. And it's got this big growth coming in through here, so it's really messing it up for a lot of big chunks. But I was thinking that if I slice it through here, I'm going to be coming up. Look at how the outside of this is like swirling around. I'm going to be coming up on this end grain here, where it appears to be swirling in like that. And it's fairly stable. Once it dries, a burl has the grain going every which way, and they tend to stay pretty flat at the end after they're dried. Other areas you can find on a tree are right at where tube or branch goes out. If you can get that section in there, it's where it's called a crotch of a tree, where a branch comes in and it kind of weaves into the tree, and you get this awesome looking grain. This is a piece of crotch ash. So it has wild, feathery, and it's unusual. It's from ash. And this came from the really big, the big ash tree out in my backyard. So I'm not going to cut that tonight, but I just want to show you, this is the kind of thing you can get. And don't ignore stumps in the ground. Like if a tree gets cut down and it's left that high, if you can get a cutting out of there, very often right where the tree comes up like that, you have like this elbow bend with all the weight and stress of the tree growing. You get this compression figure that looks a lot like this. It looks almost like crotch figure. It can be amazingly beautiful. So if you can get cuts of that, you don't need much, right, to get a bunch of these discs, right? And they make awesome gifts. I just want to cut this open. Let's see what's in here, and I'll show you how I do it. It's nice to have a big bandsaw for something like this. And how do you keep a straight line with a massive chunk like this? I'm just going to eyeball, basically, here. And I thought if I made a cut along that chalk line, I'd be cutting here, and then I could try to get some discs with that against the fence and come this way. So I'm going to use this little knot right here, this little point. I'm going to set that against my fence and try to keep it as steady from moving this way and just get a relatively straight cut. All right, here we go. Let's head over to the bandsaw. All right, let me see if I can get the fence lined up here. Okay, that might do. So I'm going to start with this point here and just try to keep it as steady as possible. And let's see what happens. Look at that. We've got some really cool wild spaltedness going on in here. And it's hard enough. And that's like a bark inclusion. It's like the way the thing grew up, it kind of grew up over a piece of bark at one point. Like a massive chunk of time right here. Slow growing. So now that I had to abandon that plan to ride on that point. As I started to do it, the blade started dive over, and I just had to eyeball it. And I can see that I've got a little curvature on here, but what I would do is just start with this face now against the fence, and I could try to flatten that. That's what I might do. I think I'll run this on the joiner. I'm not going to do that now because I want to have enough time to do this whole thing. But I would just put that flat down on the joiner, and then I could run that side. That side's not too bad, but just to get a flat reference. And then I would just set my fence to about a 1/2 inch and just slice through and create these nice slices like this. This came from this similar material. This has a little more spalted to it, though. Look at how wild that is. And if I take the awl to test, it's pretty tight. It's pretty hard. So it's going to make some nice ones. And this came right out of our backyard. This was that tree that was really close to our house.
Do you ever get concerned you might run into some metal or nails or something, Bill's asking?
Yes, Bill, that's a great point. Yeah, especially trees that get taken down near homes. You always have this risk of running into nails and things like that. So it's a good idea to have a metal detector. I have this thing. Let's turn it on. Let's see. Oh, shoot. I left it on last time, so I ran out of my battery. No, actually.
I thought you were pulling out a stud finder. We're going to do that.
Yeah, stud finder does the same thing. It finds the metal. So, yeah, that's a great point. You really should check it out if you're concerned. And then, the other thing you do is you find a limb that's just about, we're looking, you want it to be about 4 inches in diameter. You can go a little more. This is slightly under. This is almost 3 7/8. So, but around 4, 3 3/4 to whatever, 4 1/4, 4 1/2, whatever. If you find a limb of a tree that's approximately that, you can just get crosscuts. So you have miniature little circles. The problem is with that, sometimes they will crack because as they dry. So let's say we sliced them down and we got them to this point. Now you want to get them flat. I don't really run them over the joiner. This is the kind of thing that it's hard to run over joiner. It's wild, crazy grain. They're small. You're not going to do that. So you need to have some sort of sanding method. Now those belt sanders that, I guess if you had a handheld belt sander and you could put this down with a low stop, you could hold it over and smooth it and then flip it. The thing is, you're going to be hard-pressed to get it exactly coplanar and have a nice flat surface by sanding both sides independently. But that can work. And then you can have those 6-inch belt sanders. I'm going to walk over here now, and you're going to just kind of zoom in on me. Check this out. Something like this, you can get you'd have to do that, maybe against a large disc, some kind of sanding method. The best way, if you have one in your shop or you want to get one, in my opinion, is a small drum sander like this. This is a 16-inch drum sander, and it has an abrasive belt for the drive, the feed belt, and it makes it so easy. Like you can have a bunch of them stacked right here, and just drop them in, and they go through. Let's turn it on and see. Here we go. And you can flip it over. Once I've got them like that, I want to finish sand them. I got a piece of 150 grit on this sander, and I put a piece of cork, or you could put anything that's kind of got some kind of grip to it. Put a little moisture on there.
Can you say what brand that sander is?
Oh yeah, it's the Supermax. The Supermax, and that one's a 1632. They have a 1938 as well, but the 1632 is nice. It does a lot. That is the best sander, like drum sander, for the money out there, and it's been rated that way in magazines too. It's gone through a number of modifications and improvements, so it's really, really good. All right, so I would start with 150, and this one I already hit with 150. This is a different one. And then I'd finish with 220, just holding it on here. Now the back side, I just do very lightly because that's going to get covered mostly with cork. So we're going to put some kind of class it up with cork on the bottom. And so the top gets nicely sanded. And now, once you get them to this point, now you got to figure out, how am I going to make them round? You know, it'd be nice if you just had a CNC machine, stuck them in there, but where's the fun in that? There are all kinds of jigs and methods to make circles with, usually it's like a long trammel of some sort, and I have them, some of you may have seen me do that with round tops. I won't go into that, but usually it involves a router. You can also set them up at the bandsaw. But those are, you know, the minimum for those is probably, you know, about a 6-inch disc, you know. But how do you make a little trammel of something like this? I suppose you could, but. So what I did was, I knew the size I wanted, so I went scouting around for round things that would fit the bill. And so I snuck out of the house something that was perfect for it. And it was this Yankee Candle.
Oh, I'm sure I didn't know.
We've got a few Yankee Candles in the house.
We have several.
I wanted to use the lid because the lid is a little larger than the base. And you see how it press fits over? So there's a nice little size down from that. So I'm going to use the lid as my template. Now, you can see those little breather holes that I made in there. So I nailed that onto a piece of 3/4-inch plywood, Baltic birch, and then first I traced and bandsawed close to the line, then I nailed it to this, and then with a flush cutting bit, because there was so little to take away, I just very carefully, I had the flush cutting bit like almost buried in the fence, and just made a nice little circle and created a beautifully smooth template for our disc. Now we got to hold this disc on here. So this will be my top, and I'm going to choose a nice area in here. I'm just holding this on here. I don't know, get somewhere around there looks good, but I won't mark it yet. But I'm going to say this is the bottom. It's pretty much almost the same. They both have pretty nice variation. What I did was, I'm going to hold this onto the disc with a very simple method. When I started out woodworking, I used to use the double stick tape a lot, the carpet tape, which I still do in certain cases. But if that surface isn't going to show that I'm trying to hold this onto, I take a little 18 gauge brad, that's like a 5/8 long 18 gauge, and then I tapped it into the surface. I don't want to put any more in there, but tap it in about 1/4 inch or so, and then you're going to snip it off with just some regular wire cutters. And then I'll get it from the crossways. You can do it a few times. And what you're doing is you're creating a tiny little spur, like a nice point, a spur sticking out. And it's very low profile. You know, it's like a 32nd of an inch out. But that combined with two others, here I've got 3 of them in this disc. This is the pattern disc we just made. So I'm going to take that over to my piece here and find the good area where I like. I could leave natural bark too. I mean, you could do that. That's where if you have a branch it looks awesome, but I'm not going to do that with this set. These are going to have finished edges.
Okay, back.
All right, sorry about that. We blinked off. All right, so what I did was I found a really nice area on this. I was looking for any punky or soft spots. And then on the underside, I took those spurs, the spur-sided of my pattern, and I pressed it down firmly so that those spurs would seat in there. All right, now we're ready to cut our disc out. Now here's the time-saving tip. This is a pretty cool little jig that you can use a lot of ways, especially when you're doing pattern routing like I'm about to do. I'm going to pattern route to this disc, but first I want to bandsaw slightly larger than my material so I can then go to the router and cut this out. But here's the thing. Wouldn't it be great if we didn't have to draw the line or anything like that? Well, we don't, because we're going to use this jig that's like this. All right, this is a pretty cool little thing that come in handy. You'll be able to, this is going to attach to my bandsaw fence. So this is going to get clamped to the fence, and then this is going to sit on the table. And in order to make this work, in this case, I had to have this base spacer piece that's thicker than whatever it is you're trying to cut out, okay? Because the good material is going to slide underneath this is my guide. This is what my pattern is going to bear against. Almost like a bearing on a router. This is going to be me rubbing against this pattern. Okay, I'm going to just be right against it as I make a bandsaw cut. Now the bandsaw, I'm going to set this on the fence and I'm going to position this notch right over the bandsaw blade, which is 3/8 of an inch wide. This is a little wider than that. So to cut a circle this tight, you really can't go any larger than a 3/8, or it's going to not want to make that tight radius. So you can have a 1/4 inch is fine. It doesn't, and just not more than 3/8. So I'm going to position this on the bandsaw, and I'm going to set the saw blade back from this edge. So that's why it's notched. So the blade will go inside there a little bit. And if I leave it inside about maybe a 1/16 of an inch, what I'll do is I'll come into the cut, and all I have to do is hold it and turn it right as it's against that. I'm going to have to cut off some of this first because I only have that much clearance underneath, right? See how I'm not quite there. So I'll rough cut it quickly without moving it, and then I'm going to just rotate on the notch. And at the end, I'm going to have the disc will still be in position, and I will have this coaster material will be slightly proud of the disc all around, a perfect circle without ever just taking it apart. I'm going to tap this down a little. I'm getting a little bit of a... Okay, that's better. All right, so let's head over to the bandsaw. All right, so I'm going to clamp this to the fence. All I need are a couple little quick grip type clamps. See these clamps? And I've got to get that in there so when it gets pushed, it'll move a little bit. Okay, and I'll get it on the other side. Once that's set up, let me just close this gate behind you. It's set up, it's clamped. Now I want to move the fence. See where the blade is? Right there I'm flush, I want to set it inside. It needs to be tucked inside the surface a little bit. That's about right. I'm going to just stop right there. See that? It's set back. So as the pattern rides along here, the piece below will be getting cut a little larger than the pattern. This is a sweet way of roughing stuff out quickly. All right, here we go. So you can see what we've got right here. It's a little heavier all around. Right there, I hit like some of the scrap underneath. I should have resized it before, but anyway, it's a nice margin all around. Now I'm ready to go right over next door to the router table. What I've got in there is a little contour bit. You see it? We'll give you the number of this one. It's the same one we used on that walnut table.
Okay.
Anyway, it's got a nice soft little radius. And I've got it set just so the bearing is just up high enough. And it's taking off so little, I can easily just control it and turn it gently like that. Now, it's a good idea. You can bring up the fence to give you a little more. All right, here we go. Ready to go. Okay, so here's what we got. We first used the bandsaw, then with our radius bit, the bearing riding on our pattern, we were just skim cutting it. Now we've got that nice, soft little radius to the top. Now the bottom, this is already sanded. The edge doesn't need too much, except where I stopped. I should have kept moving faster. So I didn't have that problem on the other ones. But I'm a little punky right here. I could have positioned that one better, but that's okay. It's even if it has some kind of aged look, it's fine too. But what I do now is sand the edge, and I just have 220 in here. That makes a pretty clean cut. Let's see if those burn marks will come. So you get the idea. You go ahead around like that, and it doesn't take much, just 220. Now I have kind of a sharp edge here and a sharp edge on the bottom. So you could angle the palm sander and rotate it, which I've done, or you can just take I like just using a felt block sometimes with 220 on there, and you can just knock it off, like holding it approximately at 45. If you had a disc, you could turn it. It's some kind of method just to do this quickly. Doesn't take much. You're just taking a little bit of that edge off, the sharpness off. It'll still feel crisp, but not sharp. Now for finish, once you go out, your discs are all sanded, you got your edges broken, you want to put on a finish that is obviously impervious to water and won't melt either with like alcohol, so you can't use shellac because that dissolves with alcohol, and it holds up decently to water rings, but it will get water rings. So you want to stay away from something like shellac, and you want to stay away from Danish oil. You want something with a little better resin in it that resists water. So tung oils are good. Polyurethane will be fine for this. What else? Spar varnishes, quite a number of varnishes will work fine. This is a spar urethane, but if I'm using any kind of durable varnish whatever on here, I recommend you don't go glossy. They look chintzy. Semi-gloss is okay, but the last coat, I just feel like it looks nicer if they're satiny, you know. You don't want a huge build on here, but enough to protect it. So this is some satin Waterlox tung oil based. Super easy to wipe on. So we're just going to come over to this burl, maple burl that's also spalted. Look at it soak in there. Pretty interesting, huh? I mean, every one is, I didn't sand where the burn marks are, but I'm just showing you this anyway. Every one is unique. And it's going to soak in there the first coat. And then you just set it over. I'd probably have a stick, you know, over where I could lean it like that. Oh, and I do on the back, I just want to go around the edge. Just come in from the edge about 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 inch or so. I don't want to necessarily have to finish the whole thing. I'm going to put cork on the back. So you could finish it all and stick the cork on there, I guess, as well. Or you can just do the edge like this, okay? Whatever you prefer. I don't think you have to worry about them warping out or anything like that at this point because of the way it's going to have the cork on the back as well. All right, so how about that, huh? Pretty sweet. And super easy. These I made earlier. How fast you can make them. And look at, they're all from the same tree, but they're all so different.
Really cool.
Look at this one. Yeah, this is going to be our set.
Awesome.
And, I mean, they make great Christmas gifts for family heirlooms. I mean, that's like crazy. Then these would all get hit with another coat. Now I was at the point where I had to come up with a way to size this. I was like, okay, I don't want to see the cork, you know, out the bottom. And so I want it slightly recessed. I actually looked at some coasters and they had a nice layer of cork and they were slightly set under. So then I was like, okay, how am I going to get that? And I thought I could rig up some kind of offset collar on my router and shape this, and it would be a long thing. But then I said, hey, I still get the candle. And the candle cover fits over, and then you have that set in, that nice recess. So this actually, the base of the candle sets in nicely to give you a little margin of a good 1/16 or more. So what I did was I put some double stick tape on the bottom of my candle and stuck it to a block that I had sized way down. And there it is. So you can see that it's smaller. The only problem is I discovered it's not perfectly round because it is glass. It's very close. It's very hard to tell. But, and then I titled it the Coast to Cork Pattern. So this is it. And all I have to do is set it down on the cork. I'm going to get my scalpel out, and I'm going to knife right around it.
Somebody was asking how you recommend getting a clean cut of cork.
Oh, the scalpel. Oh, we'll have to put a link to this, too. This is the Swan Morton scalpel with the 10A blades. You can get them right on Amazon, right?
Mm-hmm. I'll get these up within 5 minutes after we're done, guys.
Well, a little longer than that. Oh, you do it right away. Yeah, right from the shop, right?
Do it.
All right, so once I've made a nice clean cut, and if you can even angle your cut a little so the cork is slightly tapered, because I've got the sticky side facing up here. Now, this is where I nerded out a little bit. I was trying to think, all right, production. If I was going to be doing these, one thing that annoys me is when you've got something sticky and you went to stick it down and then you get it down there, right, and you look at it after it's stuck and it's really close on this side, right, and then it's about 1/8 of an inch over here. So your cork isn't centered. It looks like it's kind of hurried and sloppily adhered, right? So I thought, how can I make sure that that gets centered every time I stick it on there? So I made a little template that works like magic, and I'm going to show you how I did it. Here it is. This is my template. So I just took a piece of plywood that had to be thinner than my coaster. So my coaster is, let's see, yeah, it's 5/16 strong. So it's a 32nd or so over 5/16. And this plywood is 1/4 inch thick. All right, so it's thinner than that. What I realized was if I cut a hole in my plywood larger than this, so I just cut a hole that was quite a bit, I didn't try to make a fancy hole here. It's plenty of room, okay? The first thing I did was I just set this in, and I cut these little blocks of pine first, okay? So then I brought those up So I glued 2 across from each other, so they were just touching the coaster, the pine first. Okay, so let me show you. See, that's this one here. This is my first block. This is the second block I put on for the size of the cork. But the first block is out here. That was just set with yellow glue, and I didn't clamp it. I just put a little on there that dried quickly. And I set all these so they were just touching the coaster, and 6 of them gave me a nice, just so it perfectly centers that disc under there, the coaster. And then this is the bottom of it here. Then I took the actual cork that I cut and set it in that opening, and I was able to measure how much of a margin there was around it. And there was a 3/16 margin. Like if I put it right against one side, I had 3/16. So I knew to center it, I needed these little spacers to be 3/32. So I just ripped these little 3/32 pieces like this, and then I just glued them on there. I put a little spring clamp on there. And then, so that's the size of the cork. So now I can, when I glued those pieces in, they set on the bottom. So now I can bring the cork in. It's just touching those pieces. And when I press it in, I've not even done one yet. So let's see if this crazy experiment works. But I think it's going to work because the disc is being held nicely in the first block. So you got to just get this started off. I would cut out a bunch of these. All of my discs are dry, and then I just one by one bring them in, pop them in the frame, and then set the cork in there. So I butt it against one side, and I can bring it down without worrying if I'm misaligned. And I can press it in, get it nicely on there. Now I can just drop it out the bottom, and look how nicely that margin is all around. It looks super professional.
Wow.
Nothing but the best for us, right?
Nothing but the best.
And check it out. Now I've got a beautifully corked bottom of a one-of-a-kind wild figured maple, and all I need is a mug to put it on. Look at that, it's perfect. What a great little method, I think. I'm kind of proud of myself figuring that out. So we've got these nice fancy little coasters. They softly hit the table, and they won't slide all around, and they're gorgeous and one of a kind. I love it. It's one of those little keep it in your back pocket ideas for making a special gift for someone that they will never forget. So, hey, if you enjoyed this, please subscribe. Mash that subscribe button and share, like, and ring the bell, all that fun stuff. All right, well, thank you so much for being a part of this and hanging out in the shop with me a little tonight. I'll see you next time on Shop Night Live.